Hello, can you hear me?
Are you?
Hello, Dimuth, right? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you too. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I would like you to introduce yourself, tell what you're doing, try to keep it like more honest, and then we go and talk about the Sri Lankan economy, especially during this time when we are facing a pandemic.
Yeah. So I'm professionally a marketing person. I am qualified in Chartered Institute of Marketing UK. So I have been practicing in that profession for about 10 years, and I have expertise in areas like advertising, political strategies, um, basically structuring of financial activities. So that's about me. So where can we start about the economy? What are the specific line of questions we have with regard to the economy?
I want you to speak it in general so people can have an idea, because when we're talking about the audience, we don't know exactly which level of knowledge they are, and there are people coming from different areas of the world. They're going to listen to what's happening in different areas of the planet, exactly, and we don't know what level of education they had. So I want you to explain it in a very brief manner so everybody can understand.
Yeah. So we have been having this uh, trade deficit, basically, like you have to send more exports and bring lesser imports. So that gap that has been widening for the last 20 years. So there's a huge unfavorable trade deficit. So this pandemic situation, which started in 2019, basically aggravated this problem more than we could even imagine. And also, Sri Lanka is a service economy because predominantly we make revenue through services. We don't have a big manufacturing economy. So whatever the industries that were bringing revenue to the country, if you get the exports like tea, rubber, and other uh, agricultural products, started to dwindle because of the pandemic, uh, because the entire globalization, the structure, the platform started to suffer. So Sri Lanka, being an island and with very fragile policy framework, started to suffer a lot because especially on top of that matter, the Sri Lankan government, especially the president, started to switch to organic fertilizer from the normal fertilizer, the carbonic fertilizer. So that chemical fertilizer, to correct on that. So that really aggravated the yields that we were generating through most of the agricultural exports, especially tea and rubber and other agricultural industries. So our export market started to suffer. So this problem started in 2020. Now it has come to a tipping point where we are really struggling in our agricultural exports. But however, there was a silver line in this pursuit. Certain industries like nitrile gloves, which comes as the PPE for this pandemic, started to boom, especially blue chips like Haley's and few multinational corporations who are established in Sri Lanka started to export this PPE for the pandemic. So certain countries started to placing orders in these industries. So that really helped us to make some revenue. But the main revenue that we get, the foreign income, especially the migrant workers. So that started to dwindle because a lot of Sri Lankans who were employed overseas started to come back, and a lot of people lost their jobs. So foreign remittances started to come down. So like I said, when you don't have revenue, a country cannot move forward. But the government had to use this new economic theory called MMT, the modern monetary theory. So you start printing money to cover that balance. So the income is coming down, so no revenue. So just to cover that, you start printing money. So this would
Monetary policy, yeah.
So at some point this would lead to a hyperinflation where you get like there are certain indicatives like indices like Big Mac index. I mean, like how much is a McDonald's burger in a country? So through that you can gauge the economy and minimum wage and all these things in developed countries. So the food inflation in Sri Lanka had gone up by I think 15 to 18%, and plus this fertilizer problem, local cultivation also coming down. But luckily the fisheries industry is somewhat moving forward, and we have consistent lockdowns. So the economy is crippled. I mean, it's very difficult to understand that where we could start patching it up, because we have been using a lot of cosmetic solutions. So I mean, the economic curve, like just it could be a V, it could be a W. So in this pandemic, a lot of economists saying it could be a W. Like you just go down and then just suddenly there'll be a like unprecedented demand, and then again would come down. So I mean, even for any economy to come up in this kind of grave situation, I think it will be like 5 to 7 years. But even for us to bring foreign investors, new businesses to the country, our snapshot of the economy looks very unfavorable to outside investors, because where we have a foreign exchange problem, and inflation, and government policies are not so robust. So the foreign investor may not favorably look at the country to invest, because sometimes you cannot take your yields, basically your profit, out of the country, because there's no guarantee the devaluation of the rupee. And this could, it is a ripple effect. So you don't know where you're going to get hit, because now the government is controlling imports. So when the imports are controlled, certain raw materials will not be readily available. So that will impact your export industry. So I mean, it is very even dreadful to even imagine. But we could try to encourage the local manufacturing industry to try to just be competitive and get more orders, and try to bring more foreign revenue. But even for that, we need to have state-of-the-art technology and be competitive price-wise as well as quality-wise. So if you look at the other aspects of this economy, Sri Lanka being an island and on a strategic location of the Indian Ocean, and plus this geopolitical positioning, we've been really working closely with the Chinese government. But with the pandemic, I think China has kind of faced lesser demand for their Chinese products. So that also could impact on us, because we have been importing a lot of Chinese goods. And coming back to the banking system, which I could talk to you earlier, also crippled, because there is no fixed exchange control. Even though if you go online and just type the currency exchange of the central bank, you will not be able to buy dollars for that rate, because people, black market, the dollar is something like 227, but the stipulated rate is 205 or something. So I mean, there's a huge discrepancy. So, and also the importers cannot open LCs to import goods because banks are not letting them to do that. Now there's a new policy where you have to have cash back LCs. So you have to have 100% cash in the bank to open up LCs. So this, in another aspect, helps certain big companies. So the companies who can put money and bring down goods, so that they will get an unfair advantage over SMEs, so the small and medium enterprises. And also, if you look at the Sri Lankan job market, 60% of the jobs are being generated through SMEs. So the SMEs are actually having a very tough time because you are kind of stuck in the middle with this government policy. So we have been having these economic restrictions for the last, I think, 20 months. So, and they are planning to stretch it for another 1 year. So the government has completely stopped the importation of vehicles. So, which is, I think, quite a positive thing because there are quite a bit of vehicles in the market. But the price of a vehicle is, I think, 3 times of the price of a European vehicle. So, but still the market, there is a market, but we are not importing new vehicles. So the government is trying to, cut corners. So try to save about $1 billion from vehicle importation. So, and also restricting non-essentials. So I don't know, with the lifestyles in Europe, perfumes and certain things may not be considered as luxury goods, but in Sri Lanka, they have, tried to name certain goods as essentials and certain goods as non-essentials. So the restrictions are going on. So it's a complete battle over policies, and also certain factions of the government basically are more pro-Westernized, and certain factors are more communist-based. So now the government has come up because in order to find revenue, I mean, the going back to what we discussed earlier, how to find revenue. I mean, anywhere, any business, or even if you look at a country like a business, you need more revenue to run the business. So government is now trying to list certain strategic assets in the country and bring them into the share market and find investors for that. So this is similar to Sri Lanka, the Singaporean entity called Temasek. If you have come across that thing, Temasek is the nationalized company for state resources. So that in that way, you list certain strategic entities, and that can attract foreign investors. So all these assets will be listed on the share market, and in that way, they are trying to bring about a couple of $1 billion. And plus, the energy minister has tried to broker like an agreement to purchase oil on credit, because that's also something that we have to consider with this currency fluctuations. Importation of oil will be quite a concern. So these are the elements all knitted together in this fabric.
So can you please tell the audience the depreciation rate at which the US dollar is and the Sri Lankan rupees, or the euros, and yeah.
I think it's we pay about 225 to 1 US dollar. So what if you take it as a percentage? Let me work on this.
Yeah, so while you do the percentage, we can also check for the euro as well. We don't need the percentage, just tell the rate. I think it's better.
Okay. So just to share a bit of, we pay, I think, 65 for the euro.
Yeah. And this actually proves that not every area in the planet is like treated equally, like I would say, because of the imbalances. Yeah.
Yeah, but it depends on the policies of the government when you do the economic policies. So with the pandemic, it's very difficult to stick to a currency balance, sometimes, but because these currency changes have been kind of strictly monitored by the central bank. So if you lose that control, this could even go further than this. So that'll create a huge inflation in the economy. So at the moment, everything is controlled. So I mean, when you control imports, that itself is a controlling element of the currency.
And how would you place Sri Lanka on a scale that talked about its development as a country? Is it a low-income country, a middle-income country, or not exactly a high-income country? Yeah, but how would you place them?
We moved from low income country to a middle income country, I think, a few years ago. So
Yeah.
that itself really worked on our. I mean, it was a bit of a disadvantage just because we lost certain IMF facilities and certain healthier negotiating platforms we had with the World Bank and other institutes, because now we are being taken as a middle income country. So that's where we are at the moment. Because if you look at Bangladesh, they are also now, I think, trying to move away from low income country, but with the country size and their robust export market and the industrialization, they are doing much better than Sri Lanka. But with the bad policies, I think we got kind of pulled down in the ladder. So that is some sort of a concern we have. But hopefully, I mean, if we have some positive policies, we should be able to get a investment drive. If you look at a country like Vietnam, they get about 45 to, I think, in the range of $50 billion as foreign investments. But in Sri Lanka, I think we get about 1.2 billion to 3 billion. That's the range of investment that we get.
So I would also like to ask you, what do the leaders actually take a role of responsibility in this kind of situation?
Well, they do try. I mean, it's a representative democracy. So we have elected members through the people. So people elect them, and we elect them to make policies for us. So, but what happens is the people also should take some responsibility, because
Yes.
Vaccination drive is quite promising. I think we have vaccinated 55% of the population, both the vaccines. So we need a little bit of discipline to just let this pandemic to curtail it and the disaster, and then a huge industrialization, basically, to have particular zones, and we have 2 airports, so we could just make some positive policies for the investors to come and start factories, and give some tax holidays for foreigners, and also some policies to move dollars out of the country, because that will create some sort of confidence for investors. Otherwise, if you constrain it, there will not be any new investments, because investors look at certain aspects before coming into a country. So if you have rigid policies, that will actually not do well. And also, we cannot take sides in this globalization, because you can't be pro-China and anti-America, or pro-India, and and I mean we have to have a balance. So
Yes.
when we do business, so I think it's a positive thing that we are going to give some of our state assets to America, which is quite a positive area, especially the energy sector, because the energy sector has been always struggling because of the geopolitical moves to, we were not, we didn't have the right frame of mind, most of the leaders, because of this political pressure to develop our energy resources, especially if you get the oil tanks in Trincomalee, that's been there for 50 years. And especially we are actually positioned closer to a very strategic route, the Indian Ocean, a lot of thousands of ships passing Sri Lanka. So if we had worked on an oil bunkering industry more astutely, we could have just made quite a bit of revenue. And also, if you looked at the international offshore banking system, where we could have made a lot of money. So I think it's high time that we had to break that shackle and just look at it from a very positive framework.
Yes. And can you also describe how was the economy 10 years prior to the situation, like this pandemic?
Well, 10 years back, yeah. So we had a civil war, and so as soon as the war was over, we went on a major infrastructure drive. We built highways, we built ports, but in that process, we used to borrow quite a bit of loans. So now we just, we had to pay back. So that loan servicing cost and the currency is basically going out of the economy. Also kind of resulted in this present scenario. But the development was good. I mean, we had to develop certain highways. We had to have an alternative airport. And that airport is coming handy at this moment with certain movements, especially in a bubble, like we can't completely depend on one airport, and also having an extra port, because you can have, oil bunkering and certain transshipments, because India doesn't have like a VC port like Colombo port. So we were planning to basically outsource West Terminal or East Terminal, I don't remember. I think it was the East Terminal to India. So, I mean, we have to think out of the box and start maximizing the gains of our resources. I mean, so, and also the port city coming into the picture, which is quite a positive aspect, even though it will take another 30 years to get the fullest return of it. It could attract a lot of foreign investors, because when you have the infrastructure, I think it's easy to go about, I mean, people will look at it from a very positive aspect.
Yes, and Sri Lanka is an island, and it's like one of the best tourist destinations in 2019. Can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, because we were the #1 destination on Lonely Planet, and people were quite expecting to go on a major drive, because we were kind of opening up the country as a bundle of goods, I mean, catering to different markets, certain luxury tourists, then you get the backpackers, then you get short stay business visitors. But Lonely Planet, that ranking really gave quite a bit of promise to local industry, because I think we have about 4,000 direct employees in this industry, but I think 4 million families depend on it. So directly and indirectly. So based on that, the industry people started investing on certain aspects of the hotels. Some people started to bring a new wing, additional swimming pools. I mean, everything was renovated, expecting 2019 would be like a real blast. I mean, we made about $5 billion in 2018 by just catering to 2.3 million tourists. So still we could have grown. I mean, it was just the tip of the iceberg. So, but unfortunately, the Easter bombing really created havoc. I mean, from 2020 Easter bombing to this pandemic, we have lost 2 winters. So both winter seasons would have been fabulous if things were normal. So now we are getting into the third winter. Still nothing is confirmed. So not sure that where it would lead us. But tourism is a must industry, which I couldn't talk about earlier, just to cover this gap between this fiscal deficit. So if tourists could come from at least from 2022, that will relieve the government from creating some foreign visitors.
Is that our best income source, tourism?
One of the major income. So
what are the other major income sources?
Garments.
Yeah.
We don't have a robust technical export. I mean, like the technology, outsourcing of the technology, call centers like that. But it also kind of developing. So there are a lot of tech companies in Sri Lanka now, but it's a long way to go, but it's quite promising. Offshore consultancy firms, an offshore financial consultancy firm like Amba Research, and also, so we get big companies in South America or Europe, and financial services are being done in Sri Lanka, which is very cost effective for those countries. And it's quite a big job creation.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you, there are also, we have a bestowed gift in Sri Lanka, which is what I call the gem market as well.
Yeah. Well, gem market has been thriving. I mean, but we have not got the exact potential of the gem market, because our gems are kind of auctioned to various channels. I would say it's like going around the bush. But if we had really gone to the right buyers directly, we would have earned those markup, because from mine to the real buyer, because there are certain interfaces who used to get the best out of our industry, because we have not been able to get the real value of our gems, but we let certain organizations like Goblins or some other industries to basically come in between and take a profit out of our industry. So because we have, I think we are one of the best countries in the world for blue sapphires and certain gemstones. So if we had strategically planned, and if we have really given our gem miners the right platform internationally, we could have attracted quite a bit of revenue through directly. I mean,
yes, because I feel like Sri Lanka has one of the biggest problems, that we don't have intangible benefits. Like we don't have like a strong brand. I think that the world recognizes internationally, and some people don't even have this like education background about Sri Lanka. Some people don't even know where Sri Lanka is in the map. And they only found out in 2019.
Yeah, I know, but the tourist board, they have a marketing department, but I think a country is being marketed through various industries. But if you get Dilma tea, that's been in the scene for a long time. 90 airlines in the world use Dilma on board, but sports basically, except for cricket, is not kind of breaking any barriers. So but if you get certain sceneries and the panoramic beauty of the country, we do get quite a limited number of high-end tourists who are not coming through proper channels, maybe through private jets, cruises. So we have to improve it. We had Richard Quest coming to Sri Lanka, I think 1 year back, 2 years back. And we created a little bit of a platform through CNN, advertising on CNN. And we have a Sri Lankan chef called Peter Kuruvita, who is doing his cookery programs on a channel. I think it's, what's that channel that you get on cable about travel channel, I think, yes. Travel and
Living.
Yeah, something like that. So we need to be creative and take all the like niceties of the country to the world. So we need to have like a cohesive strategy. So Sri Lanka Tourist Board should look at various aspects. If you get the Portuguese culture, a lot of Portuguese, I mean, like we were invaded by Portuguese. So people in Portugal don't know this relationship. I mean, how we have names and how we have certain architecture, how we have certain dishes. So if we could market specifically in Portugal, and Portugal people love to travel, but they don't come to Sri Lanka. They go
Yeah,
to
because I don't
Goa.
think everybody knows about the history. They don't know
Yeah,
about the Portuguese invading, then the Dutch, then the British
yeah.
coming, and then
So I
invading the
mean,
entire island.
yeah, so it's about, I think, if we could publish, I mean, publications, small videos. Now I think Instagram has developed to a level instantly you could market things, like if a video could go viral, I think people all over the world could just, inquire about it. So, and even certain dishes, like authentic Sri Lankan dish. And we have I think, a music video of a Sri Lankan artist going viral at the moment. I think like 100 million people have watched it. I mean, it's a very off the cuff thing, but I mean, things could, happen dramatically, because the social media is very powerful at the moment. Uh, so future, I don't think it's bleak. It's how you look at it. If the glass could be half empty or half full. So I mean, it's the way you look at things.
Yes, and I wanted to also ask if how is the revenue being generated from online activities?
Well, I don't know like how much money they make it or anything, but there is a huge enthusiasm from Sri Lankan youth. A lot of people are finding careers in influence. I mean, as an influencer online, there are people who come on as like how to lose fat and how to, I mean, beauticians,
They're educating,
motivational.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
educating
And
people.
also, since we have not been able to properly educate the kids for the last 18 months, a lot of online teachers have come. So a lot of applications, platforms to teach kids online. So online market, I think every commercialized company, SMEs are like, positively looking into social media.
Yes,
So
because
advertisement.
when I was a kid, this side of the like industry wasn't even there. Like I
Yeah,
remember, like I wasn't using the internet that much. Especially, you can't get anything useful out of it, and now it's turning into a very resourceful source.
now I think even in a small country like Sri Lanka, you could just use internet and bundle your goods and send it through Amazon and get a market share in USA. So that's the power of internet. I mean, you could, put a video and it might go viral, and then you could be like Instagram superstar. Like, I mean, there are boys in Africa who have become major attraction now. So
Yeah, by posting like simple things.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
I mean, it could be a simple melody. I mean, what is like the melody that I spoke to you earlier,
Yes.
and it could be just like catchy phrase. It could be just I mean, Sri Lankan product made out of some like Venival or sandalwood or something
Yeah.
like, and I mean, anything can happen with this social media thing. You can be famous or you can get the public wrath, like people will start trolling you on internet. So, I mean, even for a politician, it could happen. I mean, you can be, one-night sensation and could be the president of a country, and then probably after 1 year, the entire nation might, spit on you because of this internet. I mean, I mean, the youth could go to the extent of making memes and putting it on internet. And, I mean, anything can happen. I
Yeah.
mean, Donald Trump is a good example. He
Yes.
tweeted in the middle of the night, and he became quite even, I mean, I think Facebook and Twitter went to an extent of banning his account. So, I mean that's the impact of social media.
Yeah, it's like, but don't you think it's weird that other people are deciding for that person, you know?
Yeah, opinions can be swayed, like it's
Yeah.
I mean, there are companies specifically working on these algorithms, and, like I mean, I can just, if we have the resources, we could check your likes and dislikes online for the last 3 years and decide your personality through that. So based on that, we could make an inference that which party that you would support politically in the coming election. So that's how, I mean, if you get companies like Cambridge Analytica and certain companies, I mean, there are privacy, I mean, agreements now for users, consumers to sign when they use things, because I mean, Google and Facebook is having like metadata, I mean, like billions of information, I mean, about people. So it's a matter of just categorizing them and, identifying your likes and dislikes. So
Yeah.
we are living in a digital era. So your moves, I mean, your personality traits can be anticipated prior. So they use it for elections and even for marketing purpose. I mean, you can't stop
Yeah.
it now.
Yeah. So do you think that that's a violation of privacy?
It is. Even Mark Zuckerberg was questioned at the Congress. So, and certain areas he denied, and certain areas he accepted that they have used people's, online behavioral pattern to strategize their campaigns, and or even selling it to multinational companies. So, I mean, at one point we have to understand, because the moment you go on social media and start making your opinions and liking, and I think people get a judgment. I mean, you don't sometimes it's a readily available primary data. I mean, it's, you just talk about yourself on social media. I mean, celebrities, even an average individual, so you give out your opinion, but there are certain areas where you click certain likes and dislikes that also give you valuable research data.
Yes. And do you think that Sri Lanka will advance itself if it keeps on moving into the technological era like the internet?
Yeah, that is something we could just think positively. I mean, it's if you look at the startup market in Sri Lanka, a lot of youngsters getting together and trying to form companies and create, especially if you get in America, especially areas like Palo Alto or coding, and everyone tries to sell a company and make money. So it has become like a buzz. But technological market is something where we could improve, because if you get India, I mean, they generate a lot of software engineers, and it's very competitive, and IT is being taught from high school, and they have degree qualifications from hardware to software, and it is something we could easily adapt. So that is something we could possibly look at in the next 5 to 10 years. If you really make positive policies, we could export our technological resources and make money, make revenue actually.
Yeah. Do you think Sri Lanka will like function like better if everybody started like working together instead of being so competitive?
Yeah, because with partisan politics, rivalry, and especially the gender and religious, ethnic conflicts, and all these things. So these are part and parcel of modern day, but we are kind of divided at the moment politically, and we had a huge racial disharmony. We had some disastrous events with even that resulted after the math of the Easter bombing. So yes, we have to think like a nation and get united and see, how we're going to face this, because everyone has to play to the, accept that where we are. Otherwise, we all have to struggle together.
Yes, but I think that even we can come out of this, like if we try new methods and we start like actually working together, we can actually come out of the pandemic sooner.
Yes, I mean, the health sector, the even Triforces, the army, I mean, they worked very closely. They were the frontliners. So we saw that unity and also the other government servants. So, and now even in the lockdown, a lot of government servants are working. So there is some sort of a sacrifice, and certain people staying at home just to support it, because if you unnecessarily go out also, you are just harming them, because this is a transmissible disease. So your duty is either to go and participate and help the economy. If not, you should not, unnecessarily go out. So there are ways and means, you could help out in this pandemic, but you have to understand where
Yeah,
you are good.
yes, and there is not necessarily one solution. There is many.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you have to think out of the box, and you have to, get the best out of our existing resources,
Yeah,
and
because
find out.
everyone has a different reason, have their own reasons to make their own choices.
Yeah,
Because if you don't have a reason, then you won't actually speak about it, and you would
yeah,
take other choices. And I respect people who like take their responsibility as well, to not pass on this viable disease to another person as well, because
yeah,
it's like a flu. It's going to go from one person to the other.
yeah. So wearing a mask and keeping that social distance, and abstaining of going in public. All these things are the responsibilities of a average citizen. But if you are needed in the front line, if you are like a frontline health worker, or attached to the army or something, so you have to go. So that risk is also appreciated, and you have to let them work. But if you don't have anything urgent or anything absolutely vital, you could stay at home and help the other authorities to carry on the work.
Yeah, so Sri Lanka hasn't put up vaccine mandates either, right?
It's mandatory, but we cannot push people, so they invite people to get vaccinated, but there's no mechanism where you are like enforced to get vaccinated. But government is requesting people to come forward and get vaccinated. So we have, I think, vaccinated the 60 plus, and I think 35 plus. Now I think they're coming down and try to vaccinate less than 30.
Yeah. And also, what are the other alternative methods that Sri Lanka has come up with in order to help stop this spread of the disease? Exactly. Any other methods?
Yeah, there were like very alternative medicines and all. Some people try to make these Ayurvedic concoctions, but it didn't work out, because it's the vaccine was the ultimate solution to at least curb the virus. So, but now people, there were certain Ayurvedic drinks, I mean, it's all about your immune system. So uh, people tried out various things, but eventually you have to settle with the vaccine.
Yeah, I was a bit skeptical personally about the vaccine because I was taught differently, so that was my reason for not getting the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my personal reason. So I had a reason to not take it because I was taught differently. And looking at the history, I mean, this is the only year that things came out within 6 months. Yeah. So from my perspective and my education, I questioned it. And yeah. So you have vaccinations, and then you have vaccine boosters, and now they're saying that not everyone should be getting vaccine boosters either, because
Yeah.
they're not sure, because there are side effects, and there are a lot of side effects that have occurred, with the vaccination, if you see the numbers, you can see that previous vaccines haven't produced that much of side effects, because they were actually like, they took like a certain period of time to be made. And because of that, the thing is that they had a very few side effects, and we had more stricter rules back then. It's like for diseases like for the swine flu, as soon as the vaccine was released and there were about more than 50 deaths, it was taken out of the market. And now the thing is, because the situation is kind of different, they still have put the vaccines out there. So the rules and regulations that you learn in medical school is not being actually applied in the real world right now.
Yeah, because of the pandemic, most of the governments had to expedite their vaccine process. So as per the medical theory, it may not be the exact process where you need to, execute. But because of the situation, I think most of the companies had to expedite it, and there's a race among pharmaceutical companies to come out with vaccines. So that's it. I mean, we had no option but to get vaccinated, because that was the order of the day. No?
Yes,
So,
it depends on how well you can manage life without this, and how well you can like go for long. I had so many, I had hosts that I was invited to other podcasts as well, and they told me that, some of them told me that they are taking the vaccine somewhere in 2023 or 2024, when there are more viable results, and actually the vaccine effectiveness has been proven to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's your choice, but thank you so much for basically inviting me for a podcast. So I shall be at your service if you need any more further chats in the future.
Yeah, yes.
And,
I would be grateful.
okay then, thank you very much. Okay, bye.
Bye.